All right, and welcome everybody to our March monthly weather roundup. I am Joe Martucci. He is New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson. We had some good news in this month of March. We're going to talk about drought easing, but bad news for you, the self-proclaimed, I'm proclaiming you to be the snow king of the world. Not much snow in New Jersey, right, this March?
No, no, we're basically left out in the warm, not the cold.
There you go. All right, let's start with the good news, though, and that is the drought situation. Now, we're recording this on April 2nd. That's a Wednesday. We get the latest update from the United States Drought Monitor on Thursday. However, you, as we've said for the past 6 months, you have a role in this. So you might be able to break news. Are we allowed to break news on this, or are we not allowed yet?
Yeah, I mean, we can do it
Okay,
informally. There's going to be some continued improvement.
good.
The Central Jersey, kind of writ large, is going down to D0 or abnormally dry. Some of it was the last week or two, but it's going to expand a little further north to include parts of Somerset and Middlesex and Lower Hunterdon. So an expansion of that, which ostensibly means you're not in drought. You're just abnormally dry, something you'd see every 3 to 5 years, perhaps. There's going to be continued shrinkage of D2 down in the south part of the state, and D3, which is the worst we've been in. It goes to D4 in the U.S. Drought Monitor, but D3 continues to shrink into Cumberland and a little part of western Atlantic County. The groundwater just hasn't responded there completely, and that area has been in it about the longest, except up into the Pinelands too, but they've had more precip to help recover. Yes, things are improving, but we're still in a drought warning, according to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, and most of the state is still in a category of drought 1, D2, D3. One area of concern up north is the northern Highlands. They've been really shorted on precipitation, and they're probably about as bad off right now as that D3 area of South Jersey. Precip wise, they are, but not groundwater wise. So, we're a little concerned about the northern Highlands and the far south when it comes to the full spade of water resources.
Just to paint a picture for everybody watching and listening here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at some point in December, I believe it was pretty much the southern half of the state was in that D3, and then the rest of the state, the northern half, was in D2. So
Right.
you had extreme drought or severe drought. So it has gotten, better by a good amount, but we were in such a hole in December that we're digging out of a big hole to get there. And
Yeah,
God,
well, good. Within a 3 4 month period, we had 10-inch deficits in precip. So we were under 50% of normal. Since that time, we've still been a little below normal, but the deficit has remained about 10 or 11 inches. So we haven't cut off that deficit or reduced that deficit, but it hasn't grown. That's why we're still in drought. But with time, most of that deficit was accrued early in the last 6 months, let's say, and it becomes less significant. And you don't have to make up that 10 inches to say you're out of drought any more than we had to lose a 10-inch deficit from early last year to get into a drought. So if we can hold our own, average precipitation, maybe a month or two above normal, we'll be okay this summer. But still, we're in a drought, and the groundwater is still a little below normal. Stream flows are generally below normal. The reservoirs in central and North Jersey remain below normal. So if we get into a hot, dry summer, we're going to get into a heap of bad situation much more quickly than were we entering this coming summer, this coming water consumption season, if you will, with reservoirs full and groundwater at normal levels. So we've got no room for error, you might say.
yeah, and just tell people with drought, this is something that usually builds up over a period of time, correct? Including this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's different kinds of drought, and in that sense, we can talk about flash drought, which has gotten a lot of attention in recent years, but it's always kind of been with us. But it seems like many of our droughts these days are flashier. They come on quickly because we've just shut off the precip and temperatures are above normal, and that's a potent recipe for drought. Then there are the longer term droughts. They take a while to build up. That it might include the cold season, for instance, where you don't notice it. And those can be a little sneakier, and can be longer term, which ultimately results in big problems. And then, of course, we can talk hydrologic drought, agricultural drought, wildfire-induced drought, water resource drought. Drought is a really interesting climatologic construct, if you will.
Yeah, but last question on drought, like,
Yeah.
is there comparisons between what we're seeing now and what we've seen over winter to 2002, which was, I would say, a very significant drought, at least for New Jersey standards?
Yeah, that's one we really have to start looking back to. We've really had nothing quite as serious since then. We've been teased a number of times, 2010, 2018, I could go on. But this one came on so acutely, unprecedented last fall, in how deeply we got into dry conditions very quickly. And now it's had a little bit of legs to it because we've been below normal in November, December, January, and February in precip. March, close to normal.
Yeah.
And with that, we have to start looking back to 2002. But remember, the reservoirs were 30% below normal in March, not the 15 they're below normal this March. And we were in a drought emergency because we had been dry on more than off in terms of low precip since 98. You threw Floyd in there, but generally it's a 4 year period, 4 to 5 year period of below normal precip. So we're not in that position at this point, and we've not been in that position since 2002, and may it stay that way.
Yeah, we're hoping we don't have any drought emergencies this summer. And I guess in a little bit of good news, I don't think we're going to see another record all-time lowest precipitation in a month like we had in October of last year, which was the driest month on record for any month by a good amount. So hopefully we continue to get this rain. We've been getting rain, a good rain once a week. That's good. We could use it a little more spaced out, but we'll take what we can get, and it has been showing improvement. All right, let's switch over to March and our snow here. That's another drought of a different kind. We didn't see much in the way of anything when it came to March. March was not a very wintry month for us.
No, it wasn't. And we can finish this real quickly. A few flurries, a few squalls on a couple of days up in the northern part of the state. Nothing measurable out there during the month. Not unprecedented, but a little unusual, particularly in the north, not to have any type of measurable snow in the month of March. So I'm not saying we've put the snow season to bed yet. We're going to have some chilly weather in April. But it looks like, were we to stop right now, the season would come in below normal for the state. Some of those southern regions that got socked a few times in
Yeah.
January and into February may end up a little below, a little above normal for the season. But for the most part, kind of a dud.
We'll talk more about that in next month's update, but it's going to be an interesting map on your website, on your climate website. You show a map of the seasonal snow. I'm already picturing those higher snow totals in Cape May County and in Sussex County, in the two corners of the state.
Yeah, that's probably the case. It's not like a couple of years ago when Galloway, I
Yeah,
believe, was the snowiest in the state.
yeah.
There's going to be places up north that are beating or going to beat out. They're already exceed what fell in Cape May County. But Cape May County is going to give Sussex County a good run for its
Okay, look at
money.
that. The bubble was gone this winter. I don't know where it went. People were asking me, "Where's the bubble?"
Well, they were a snowy bubble. I mean,
Oh, it was
they
a
were
snow
snow
globe.
globe.
Yeah, there you go. The snow globe. Good
The
point.
Cape, so now it's the Cape May County snow globe.
Right, right. Good point. Good point. Last question on this March here. Have we, over the past couple of decades with climate change, have we seen more marches without snow? Is there a trend there, or is this just weather being weather?
I would say at this point it's weather being weather. And when it comes to snow, you have to be very patient to look for any trends because we know how variable snow is from year to year. So I would not put any stock in any trends at this point.
Okay, good to know. All right, we're going to get to our temperatures in March here. So, how did we end up across the board during the month of March? Did we continue our streak of below average months?
No.
No, okay. I didn't think so.
But we almost resumed our count of top 10 months for warmth.
Ah, okay.
As things stand right now, just within the last 2 hours, we got preliminary numbers out of the National Centers for Environmental Information. And I stress preliminary. It will have the state as the 11th mildest March on record, 4.2 degrees above normal. And that also includes the southern half of the state, inland southern part of the state, 4 degrees above normal, ranks 12th warmest. The coastal areas, 3.9 above, and actually ranks 10th. And the north ranks 11th. So all the rankings are right there at 11th warmest. Will it go one or two ranks higher? 12th, 13th, perhaps. Could it drop down to 10th or 9th? It might, but I'm not real confident it will. But still, we after those 3 months of below normal temperatures, we're back where we were the prior 13 months,
Okay.
and that's above normal.
The beginning of the month started out pretty cold. Those first 4 days, I'm just looking at the numbers now from the first to the fourth.
Yep.
This is at Atlantic City International Airport. We had 3 days in a row below average, including the second and the third that were 10 degrees below average. And we had lows in the teens, I think even a few single digits on the third in the Pinelands. Was there anything, I know you're saying the overall warmth, but was there any period of time within March that stood out to you, or was this, again, just kind of weather being weather in the month of March?
Well, it's March being March. Yeah. I mean, we started off cold, no question about it. And then, of course, in the last week of the month, we had several days where we eclipsed the 80-degree mark in inland locations in the south and up into central portions as well. Records set. I don't believe there are any low temperature records set. There were a few this past Saturday when we got into the mid 80s in a few areas. I think there were a few records set, but it's March being March. It can really turn on a dime. I mean, we've seen that, and we'll talk about the backdoor cold front.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
That's March. It's a bouncing ball.
Yeah. Hey, you know what was impressive to me on the 29th of March? That was that really warm day we just had on Saturday. There were places at the immediate coast that got into the 80s, but not in the Barrier Islands. This was like Monmouth County for the most part that doesn't have that bay to their west in most towns. But, there were people in Long Branch hanging out like, it was July 6th or something.
Yeah. There was offshore winds for the most part. The coolest high temperature on Saturday, memory serves me correct, it was 63 degrees at our Fortescue station, which is on Delaware Bay. I could throw a stone and hit the water, and that's because winds were from the south, and that pushed the cool wet waters of Delaware Bay, chilled the Fortescue station. Didn't get out of low 60s. Even High Point got up to 71 or 72.
The Delaware Bay has its own little, what we call microclimate as well. Southwest winds are not your friend in the Delaware Bay this time of the year. Nope. All right, we're going to take a break here. On the other side, we are going to talk about this backdoor cold front because it did make history, and we're going to talk about plenty more on our March monthly weather roundup. Stay right here. Thanks to the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, your flood insurance bills are lower and your streets safer from the reality of flooding. Since beginning in 2013, we build more resilient shoreline communities. Our member towns develop and share in best practices that anticipate future concerns and create flooding solutions. From our town-specific free web app for flooding information to our weekly tidal flooding talk show, we focus on flooding 24/7. Visit www.njcoastalcoalition.com for more. All right, and we are back with our monthly weather roundup. You can catch new episodes around the turn of every month. We don't have a set day because Dave Robinson and I are very busy human beings, so we have to see what aligns with us perfectly there. All right, let's take a look at what I think is going to make my top 10 weather events of 2025. I don't know if it will for you. This is the backdoor cold front we had on Saturday, March 29th. Here's why. So this is at Monmouth County Airport. This is KBLM. It was tied for the second biggest 1 hour temperature drop on record. It went from 77 to 45. That's a 32-degree drop. And in 5 minutes, it dropped 15 degrees from 72 to 57. And in Lakehurst, it was the third largest 1 hour temperature drop of all time, going from 73 to 47. I don't think it has to be said, but it broke the March record, and it wasn't even close. So that's already in contention for me. Probably going to be around 10 or so. But I mean, I don't know if you were out. I don't know where you were, but we're close to KBLM Airport. Literally, it felt like summer, and then it felt like winter, like that. It was incredible.
It was incredible. I got one to top you. The
okay.
New Jersey Weather Network station at Rutgers Garden in New Brunswick dropped 23 degrees in 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it went from 76 to 53 in 5 minutes. And yes, I walked into a restaurant in short sleeves, knowing full well I was going to be cold when I came out of it because I was following this, and came out a little while later, and it was actually raining. There was a brief rain shower, and it was windy, and I got to that car real fast.
I can imagine. It was like, I couldn't even describe it. I mean, there's many times during the summer and even a late spring, you get the thunderstorm and it cools down, but it still feels like, I don't know. It still feels generally warm because it's usually like June or July, but this was like shorts to jackets. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't say I've ever felt something like that before. And I know a lot of people on my Facebook page were saying, how crazy it was. And the wind too, when that came through, they said, someone rode their bike. They're like, the wind, like it almost knocked them over on the bike.
Yeah. No, that was, that's top 10 candidate, I would say.
Okay. All right.
Well, let's hope it is, because that would mean that most of the rest of the year was relatively benign.
That's true.
Weather-wise.
That's true.
But I'll often throw an honorable mention, so it'll get in there somewhere.
Okay. All right. Good.
In part because it was a very warm day. I mean, we had some stations in our network get up to 86, and quite a number got over 80. So even that afternoon of and by itself was pretty impressive for late March. And then you throw in, and it's always fun to educate people.
Yes.
About things like backdoor cold fronts. Just for people who may not be familiar, they come in from the northeast and move westward through the state, unlike a frontal system like the one we saw on Monday night, which was accompanied by the first major outbreak of thunderstorms for the season, which comes in from the west or northwest and comes through the state. So it's a sign of spring. Boston never got into the warmth.
No.
And then on Sunday, South Jersey got back into the warmth, and North Jersey stayed in the upper 40s.
Yeah.
And then the front reversed, and the warm front backed up through the state, and it got up to 80 on Monday. So some areas in the South saw 70s, 80s, 70s to 80. Central North Jersey was 80s, 40s, and then back to the 70s.
Weather whiplash.
Spring. Well, welcome to spring.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have a confession to make. I don't think I could ever live in New England because of days like what you were saying on Monday, where They just don't even get the taste of the warmth. It's just cold.
Well, toss into the fact that on Saturday, when we were in the mid 80s, there was an ice storm in southern New Hampshire up into northern New York, and north of there, a half a foot of snow fell up the Connecticut River Valley north of Hanover. So it was snowing and icy there, and here we were in shorts out at the beach, basically.
Yeah. We went to Liberty State Park because it was my wife Shawnee's birthday. She wanted to do that for her birthday, so happy birthday. And you're still out in the boat, in the middle of the water, right? And you can feel the cold ocean trying to push back against that offshore warm wind, but like it just wouldn't win. Like you felt it for a second, and then that warm wind came back. So, and then eventually that backdoor cold front came through and it wiped all that away. So that was pretty. I thought that was really impressive as we went through that Saturday.
And may I add to the meteorologist I'm talking to is relatively well forecast. There was some question how far north that warm air was going to get last Thursday, but by the time we got to Friday and Saturday, you were pretty darn sure it was going to make it up into Connecticut.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? If you're just looking at computer models alone, they are notorious for overplaying this. They'll say the warm air is going to go further north than it actually does. So, like, my alarms in my head for a couple of days, like, I've seen this story before. But, there was a really, strong push of that warm air. We saw it in Texas and in the Deep South, made its way. And, we had what we had. I mean, even I think that line was around Hartford, Connecticut. I know you said Boston, but it was like Hartford, Connecticut-ish was where that transition was. So an incredible day. And like I said, something that I think is going to go in the top 10. This one is definitely going to go in the top 10 as we end this one. And that is the winds this winter. Now, I'm cheating a little bit because winter is December, January, February, but this was the windiest winter since 2010, 2011. And this is at ACY Airport. That's in Atlantic County and Ocean County Airport too. So it wasn't just one location. There was some, length to this up and down the shore. And in Cape May County Airport, it was actually the breeziest since 2017-18. So it was the windiest in at least a few years, if not a little over 10. One thing too, and this is from the National Weather Service, they put this out. The National Weather Service issued the most or was tied for the most number of wind advisories. That's 46 to 57 mile an hour gusts for Atlantic and Cape May County since records began for the Weather Service on that. So,
when did those records begin? I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's probably not all that long. To be honest, it's probably got to be since 2000 or so. I don't know how long.
Several decades. I think you got it. Oh, Joe, there's no question.
You're nitpicking. I'm just kidding.
I even talked Monday night and said, how many people think it was windy this winter? There are 50 people there. Every hand went up. And I often shy away from anecdotal type of references, and wind, it's tough because it varies from place to place, and we don't have real good long-term records. A few stations like you cited, but there's absolutely no question how windy it was this winter. We look at the number of our stations that gust over 40 miles an hour. Now, the number of stations has changed through time. So that can be a problem. But we had half of our 69 stations gust over 40 miles an hour one day a couple of weeks ago. And with Jersey, with a lot of trees sheltering more than we'd like some of our weather stations, that's a heck of a lot.
And a lot of wind.
It was just windy.
My in-laws had a tree come down one day from the wind, so it was pretty incredible. ACY Airport also gusted to 71 miles an hour on February 16th. That is the second highest wind gust on record for climatological winter. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the 1940s, that data. So there is some length to that. Now here's something for you. And I was a little skeptical when I saw the data on this, and I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot, but I know you can do it. So compared to history, these winds that we saw this past winter are about average according to the long-term record. We have seen a decline in wind speeds over the decades. at ACY, at Ocean County Airport. Do you think that to be true? I mean, there is the data there, and I could show you it later, but I'm just wondering, is that something you've seen?
We had a student look at Newark data 2 years ago. She's just finishing her master's degree out at University of Kansas. Now, I just talked to her this week.
Oh,
She found no change,
yeah.
no
Okay.
trend at Newark. At Newark. Now we've begun. I have another undergraduate intern looking for the first time at upwards of, well, he's looking at 5 minute data. So it only goes back to 2012 at our stations. So we're not going to be looking at trends. We're looking more at what we call wind roses, prevailing wind directions at our inland and coastal stations around the state. So we don't have a lot of long-term records. So it's interesting if Atlantic, I'd want to look as the station moved. It has some, but that was back in about 98.
Yeah. It's
And it had
interesting. Or good. I'm sorry.
no new anemometers at that point. So I'd want to look at the metadata, the data about the data at the
Right.
station.
It's
But
interesting you said that. I wrote an article for Shore Local magazine about this, and I looked into what you said, metadata, the data about the data. And there's really nothing that, like, there was no either location or measurement tool change that makes me think that had something to do with it. Because that was my first thought. Maybe something changed around that time, and there just isn't. Now what's interesting is at Monmouth County Airport in Wall, they've been slowing down as well. And then in Millville also too. So I looked in Millville, and that could be explained, and you can read my story on my website, cupofjoe.live, but there is because of a location change that has to do with it. But Monmouth County and Atlantic City International Airport both had that decline. I texted you the story as you were talking, so you can check it out later and let me know. But either way, it was windy this winter. We all know it. It was the windiest in a while. So hopefully the breeze dies down.
Yeah, let's keep looking. And then, of course, if there has been a change, why? And
Yeah.
I can't, off the top of my head, decide what that might be. And in fact, I often have people forever saying, isn't it getting windier? I've never had someone say, isn't it getting less windy?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I've had to push back on that with people for years, saying we really don't have good data to suggest it's getting windier. But here, you're providing some good data that says it's getting less windy.
This is all according to the Iowa Environmental Mesonet. I know you know it. I know it's a tool a lot of meteorologists use to look at data. So take a peek. Maybe we could talk about it in the next monthly weather roundup as we go into the end of April, beginning of May. All right, we have about 45 seconds left. Tell us where we can get everything you need to know about New Jersey's current conditions and climate information.
Yeah, State Climate Office is njclimate.org. You can go directly to our weather network, njweather.org. Of course, we have our CocoRoz volunteer precipitation network, and for that, I just refer you to the State Climate page for a link. And then, if you happen to be in the vicinity of Cook Campus at Rutgers, the last Saturday this month of April,
Yes.
you will find us at the corner by the Marine Science building on Cook Campus at where we have a table. The State Climate Office has a table, and we'd love to see you and talk to you.
A well-attended table, I might add.
Well, sometimes they're just asking directions to another.
Okay.
But oftentimes they come up, and we have some wonderful conversations with a wide variety of very young to older, let's say.
Yes, older, exactly. Yeah, it's a great time. Rutgers Day is great. If you haven't been, it's free. It is rain or shine, but usually it's shine. I won't be there. I'm actually going to be at a wedding for a fellow Cook Seb's School of Environmental and Biological Sciences wedding, who had it on Rutgers Day. Go figure. I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm just going.
It starts at 10 o'clock. Come on. You can
That's true. I guess I can do both.
You can come in your tux or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's in Pennsylvania. I guess I can go there on the way. We'll see. Anyway, we're out of time. So it was good talking with you, Dr. Robinson. We'll be back with you around the turn of the month, April going into May, and we'll recap the April that was, and we'll talk about some snow totals right then by the time we get to the next episode.
Yes, we will.
Awesome. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon, and thanks for watching our monthly Weather Roundup.